Yeah, I just want and happy new year. I would like to call the Board of Directors meeting for the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority to order. It's January 8th, 2026.
Director Kenneth.
Here.
Director Matthews. Here. Director Chapman.
Here.
Director Sutherland.
Here.
Director Dominguez.
Here.
Director Gill.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, excellent. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone either via Zoom or in person? That's a strange call.
There now.
To just enforce, no, okay. All right. Then we will then move on to the approval of the December 11th meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
A second.
Director Kenneth.
Yes.
Director Matthews.
Yes.
Director Chapman.
Yes.
Director Sutherland.
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously, great. All right, now we'll move on to the approval of the consent items. There are 2 items from consent. Does anybody wish to pull any items from the consent calendar? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. I'll move approval of the consent calendar. I'll second. Okay, so you have a motion from Director Matthews with a second by Director Dominguez. Call roll.
Director Kenneth.
Yes.
Director Matthews.
Yes.
Director Chapman.
Yes.
Director Sutherland.
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. We are moving right along. And the next item of business is to approve a resolution recognizing District 5 Director Vicki Alexander for her years of service to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. Mark, are you going to lead us off, or Andrew?
Good evening, directors. Mark Landgraf, Assistant General Manager. I am going to hand the baton to our General Manager.
Excellent.
Sorry, I pulled rank on Mark tonight.
Honored.
I wanted to be able to do this. Good evening, directors. It's my honor this evening to bring before you a resolution of the governing board of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority recognizing District 5 Director Vicki Alexander for her years of service to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. Whereas Vicki Alexander was appointed to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority Citizens Advisory Committee by the Board of Directors as its District 5 representative on August 22nd, 2019, and was elected CAC chairperson in 2021 and 2022. And whereas Vicki was appointed to the District 5 position on the Open Space Authority Board of Directors on February 24th, 2022, and was elected vice chairperson in 2023, 2024, and 2025. And whereas Vicki submitted her resignation announcement on December 4th, 2025, indicating her impending resignation for the Board of Directors, effective midnight on December 11th, 2025. Whereas Vicki taught 4th grade classes at Lynn Haven Elementary School in the Campbell Union High School District, and also provided English as a second language instruction through Metropolitan Adult Education in San Jose. And whereas Vicki served in leadership roles at her family business in Santa Clara for over 27 years, and whereas Vicki has served as a member of the Board of Directors for the League of Women Voters for over 5 years, and has led or co-led multiple initiatives related to climate and local governance within that capacity. And whereas Vicki was known by colleagues on the board as a leveling force, in that after listening to others on a given topic, she typically provided a few well-chosen words that brought other thoughts and opinions together. And whereas Vicki was considered to be thoughtful and articulate, especially when dealing with sensitive issues, whereas Vicki could be relied upon to be well-prepared and knowledgeable on the issues to be discussed in a board meeting, or at all board meetings for that matter, especially while serving as vice chairperson. And whereas Vicki was a strong proponent of those aspects of the authority's mission that relate to the support of agriculture and the enhancement of biodiversity, and consistently express support for the agency's urban grant program. And whereas Vicky has been dedicated in her enjoyment of open space and trails, inspiring others to follow in her footsteps. Whereas Vicky demonstrated her understanding of the importance of maintaining solid intergovernmental relationships and would appear at numerous off-site agency events, being very active in welcoming guest speakers, including partner agency staff and any elected officials and their representatives. Whereas Vicky served as a role model to others through her steady support and informed comments during board meetings. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority Board of Directors honors the service of Director Vicky Alexander to the Open Space Authority and its constituents. Passed, approved, and adopted on January 8th, 2026. And Madam Chair, I'd like to turn it back over to the board for your discussion, and then we have a presentation to Director Alexander.
Thank you, Andrew. I will go first, Vicky. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to work with you as chair and vice chair. I think we made a really good team. I will miss you solidly. We had a lot of good conversations. We had to navigate a lot of difficult things together. I will miss your steadfast support of the agency, especially in closed session. You were very principled and very calm guiding voice. Sometimes, we would get emotional and you would, did you think about this? That is so appreciative. And I said, I cannot stress enough how I will miss you. And I look hopeful that you will continue the work in other areas, keep in touch with us. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Director Gill?
Actually, I especially come today for definitely I was sick. I informed the clerk, I think 2 days ago, I'm not attending this meeting. But this morning I feel much better, and then I realized that, our dear friend Director Alexander has the last board meeting and I should have to go and wish her. That's why I'm here. As we know that Director Alexander with us almost last 4 years on the board, and during that time she did a fantastic job to achieve many important milestones to bring the agency to the next level of its progress. Thank you, Vicky, for your dedications and your leaderships on the board. Your passion really made a big difference, and we miss you. And I personally wishing you a great success and fulfillment on your next endeavor. Good luck. God bless you and keep in touch with us. Thank you.
Doing good.
Vicky, thank you so much for your years of service and leadership. And even though we worked together for a short time, it definitely stood out that your steadfast approach to how we handle situations and your calmness, and more importantly, your passion to the mission of this organization is really what helped us all work together collaboratively as a group. And it just made a real difference in how we all show up. So we appreciate you, and I'm thankful for the short time that we had to work together. I appreciate your guidance and your mentorship, and I wish you the best. And I hope that I could call on you anytime in the future if I need some support.
Director Matthews.
Yes, well, I'm really glad that our paths crossed, however briefly. However, what's great about Santa Clara County in general is that all of our paths are crossing all the time. I just learned that you taught ESL for Metropolitan Debt, which I also did. So I don't remember you exactly, probably different times, but there's another example of our paths crossing. I'm sure you're going to continue on your own individual path and do good things for the community. And thank you for your service.
And Director Kenneth.
Well, the part of you being the leveling force that was mentioned is really the truth, and I appreciate you being that person on our board. And it's funny that you took us through the pandemic, and I kind of first remember really meeting you in person after, we were able to get back, so I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you're moving forward to something in your life that looking forward to. Despite I don't know if you feel guilty yet about leaving us in our time of need, but I wish you well and good luck.
Director Sutherland.
Thank you. Vicky, I think I've known you longer than almost anyone here because we met on the CAC. I remember when you came to the CAC, what you say about Vicky being a very leveling force is so true. Your work on the CAC was so important. It was so great to get to know you there. And then I was so delighted and a little bit sad when you were going to the board. I went, oh, but the CAC learned from you. I know you do great work on the board, and the board has obviously learned from you. Your impact on this organization is going to be deep because you've gone through so many different steps. I know that you're going to continue to shine and do great things wherever you go. And I know that there's somebody out there who's probably really little, who's going to really benefit from you and all your love and all your love and calmness and great sense of values. So thank you so much for sharing the time with us and knowing you're going to go on and do great things. So thank you.
That, we'll bring it back to staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I think a lot of things have been said about you, Vicky, but first of all, I just want to say thank you for your support of me and staff, always so respectful and just very fruitful conversations we've had. And I was always so impressed when we had our one-on-ones. You always had deep questions for me. You knew what was happening in the community, what was happening around the state, and you brought that awareness to our business and in really thoughtful questions that you would ask. I also was so impressed with how well prepared you always are, and especially in closed session, the thoughtful questions you would have, and you were, somebody said here, a leveling force around the table to get us to yes or to no, as the case might be. And last but not least, I have really enjoyed getting to know you as a fellow hiker and open space lover. The only thing is, you continue to show me up. You are out there like nobody's business, hiking the trails and visiting wild places all over the country and the world, and it's really impressive. So stay in touch, keep telling us where the best places are, and we'll be just down the trail trying to catch up with you. Thanks.
Yeah, Vicky, it's been such a pleasure working with you both on the CAC and on the board. Like, has been said, you've been such a steady force and provided really strong leadership, and I will always appreciate that. And I learned a lot from you over those years. You've also been such a great listener. So not everybody is such a good listener, and like was put in the resolution, you have a really good way of bringing people's thoughts together and coalescing them. I think that helped bring a lot of unity and cohesiveness to the group. So just really appreciate having gotten to know you, and do hope you stay in touch with us.
Hi, Vicky. I also want to thank you for your service, and like Mark, I really appreciate working with you while you were on the CAC as well as while you were on the board. So many great things have been said. I hate to repeat them, but your calmness, your graciousness,
being able to take in information, be very rational about it, ask great questions. Again, it's clear you were so well informed and committed. I just really appreciate your dedication to the mission, to staff, and just helping move the agency forward. Wish you the best of luck in what you do after this. And I know it must be wonderful because it was clear that you enjoyed your time here. So it must be really great. Enjoy.
Director Alexander, Vicky, want to just shout out to all your accomplishments and supporting staff on all of our public access projects in particular over the last few years and one to come very soon. You played an instrumental role in shaping those both on the CAC and on the board. And so you can always look back and hike those trails and think of your time here at OSA.
Thank you for your service. One thing I'll share is that I became a board member of a small nonprofit about 4 years ago, and I don't know if I'm very good at it, but seeing folks like you excel as board members and just contribute to the organization really does help us up and coming folk learn from people who can really do it. And so good board members are really hard to find, and we'll definitely miss you. Thank you.
Hi, Vicky. Feels weird to say that. I really, our most regular interaction was probably at the Administration and Budget Committee meeting over these last handful of years. Well, you were in our vice chair role, and those were always such exciting meetings, which might not sound like plausible, but part of that was, again, that just very honest and legitimate curiosity that you would bring to the topics that staff is bringing to you and to the board. So I appreciate so greatly how you helped us frame and shape things like our governance principles and our processes around budget and recruiting or finding new CAC members and all sorts of those things. So appreciate kind of that curiosity that you brought to those kind of mundane sounding processes to people who weren't in the room. Thank you. We'll miss you.
Caroline or Ivy, anything you'd like to maybe present? Vicky?
Sure. Hello. Yeah, it's been wonderful. I think both of our tenures started at the same time, right before the pandemic. So it's nice to have helped facilitate your growth with the agency as well. And I've always enjoyed our conversations about hiking and our trips, and I aspire to have the gumption to travel and to do like the really amazing traveling that you do, that you set aside time for, and I'm always in awe of that. So hopefully we'll keep in touch, and I can continue to hear about your great travels.
And yours too.
And while she's doing that, do we have anyone on Zoom? No public comment. Thank you.
Director Alexander, we have two things we'd like to present to you, from the board and staff tonight. Sure. First of all, we have the official resolution that was read into the record, and I want to thank Mark Landgraf, who does such a wonderful job in putting these together, and staff as well in admin for putting this together and making it look so good. So from us to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then we really had a hard time deciding what photo to give Director Alexander, but this particular one is of a lovely property that the Open Space Authority has protected. We have guided tours there for the public. It's not yet a full-fledged open space preserve, but this is Diablo Foothills in South County. And anytime you'd like to go and explore there some,
I would love to.
we'd be happy to take you there. So, Madam Chair, I thought maybe Director Alexander could take a picture with the board members, and
I was hoping you would say.
Okay.
Yes.
all right.
I'm wearing my uniform. Okay, so
Maybe up behind the, yeah.
Not with me this one.
We should get no. You again. Good job. Okay. There you go. Okay. There we go. Okay. Thank Yeah. There's a greater problem. Yes. Yeah, you'll definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to adopt the resolution.
I'll do second.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the resolution recognizing District 5 Director Vicki Alexander for her years of service to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. By Director Kennett with a second by Director Gill. Call roll.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Congratulations and best luck.
Thank you all. I look forward to all the great things that are going to be happening in the future. Thank you.
Okay. We're now on to electing board officers, chairperson and vice chairperson for 2026. Where after 3 years, I get to pass it down. Carolyn, did you want to do a presentation? first?
Yes, really quick, just to go through a couple of things and to kind of help describe the process that we'll take to make the nominations and to vote. So pursuant to Public Resources Code 35130 and section 2.10 of the board operating rules and procedures adopted by the board of directors shall elect a new board officers at the first regular meeting in January of each year. And the term of each office is for 1 year. And the responsibilities of each officer, chair and vice chair are outlined in the staff report. The following officers have served over the past 4 years, so as Director Chapman has mentioned, well, starting in 22, our chairperson was Dr. Gill, and our vice chairperson was Director Chapman, and then subsequently it has been Director Chapman and Director Alexander. So the first step, we'll do each vote for the officer respectively, one at a time. So we'll start with the election of the chair. Once we have a vote for chairperson, then that person will take over the position immediately, and that the new chair will preside over the election of the vice chair. So step one, we'll open the floor to nominations, and there can be up to 3 nominations on the floor at one time. The chair will close the floor to nominations once we have all of them, and then you can take public comments. The next step will be to vote, starting with the last nomination received first per Rosenberg's Rules of Orders. And then the final step, whomever gets 4 votes will then be elected chair.
Okay, thank you. Before I do that, I just wanted to say the last 3 years have been an extreme honor and privilege to serve as the chair. I've enjoyed it very much. But it is time to relinquish the gavel onto somebody else. And but I think it's very exciting about this agency is when I took on vice chair, I had only been with the agency, I think I'd only been in more position for a year. So I think it's wonderful to rotate the positions and to give leadership experiences to all the board members, because I think it's a really good learning experience and a good way to know kind of the ins and outs of what's going on with the agency. So thank you for allowing me to serve for 3 years. So with that, I'm gonna make a motion, or I'm gonna make a nomination to nominate Director Sutherland as the position chair.
I'll second that.
Do we have any other nominations? Any other nominations? Going once? Okay. We will close the nominations. All right. So we have a motion and a second to elect Director Sutherland as the next chair.
And there are no public.
No public comment. Okay. Okay. You ready? You want it? Oh, yes. Just waiting for the word. She's not leaving the room yet. Okay. All right, let's call roll.
Director Ken,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Dominguez,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes,
All right, that motion passes unanimously, and so I will now pass over the gavel.
Thank you, Director. And just Helen and I have known each other since our children were very young. We first met when she was trying to put a playground in behind the Rose Garden Library, and her children were small enough to play on a playground. So Helen, it's been years that you and I have been working together and playing outside, and I appreciate your nomination. And to my fellow board members, thank you very much for your support. I look forward to this. And then I do have the cheat sheet.
That's a standing hill.
And so now we need to, I want to open nominations for accept nominations for vice chair. And do we have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Director Gill.
Thank you. And does this require a second?
It does not, Madam Chair.
It does not, okay. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Director Dominguez.
Thank you. And so it doesn't require a second. We now need to move to the next step. Are there any other nominations? We can take up to 3. Going once, going twice? Okay, I'd like to close nominations for the vice chair. And then Carolyn, can you lead us through the?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, let me catch up because I'm typing these out.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so we will vote, we will vote the last nomination that was received first. So we will vote on Director Chapman nominating Director Dominguez to be vice chairperson for the Board of Directors for 2026.
Excuse me, through the chair, clerk of the board, could I ask counsel and you? There's been a motion made to advance the vice chair position for Director Dominguez.
Correct.
Does there need to be a second or is there just a
No
vote?
second necessary.
You just, okay, thank you.
All right, I'm ready. So the motion on the floor is for Director Chapman nominating Director Dominguez to be vice chairperson for Board of Directors for 2026. Director Kennett,
No.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Dominguez,
Yes.
Director Gill.
No.
The motion passes. So Director Dominguez is the vice chair.
Thank you, thank you. And then I guess we move on now to new business item number 3, which is receive a presentation on the American Badger corridor modeling in the Open Space Authority's jurisdiction. And I hope that you all got to watch the video because it's really fun.
Thanks. Good evening, Board of Directors and staff. My name is Lillian Amaral. I'm the GIS technician here at the Open Space Authority. I'm very excited to be here tonight to share with you all the project I've been working on since joining OSA and to highlight the work that we've been a part of for the conservation of American badgers and wildlife connectivity throughout our region. There will be no action needed from the board tonight. The purpose of our time is to receive a presentation on the American Badger Corridor Modeling Project. I'll start by describing OSA's commitment to grassland conservation and tell you about the wildlife corridor modeling itself, how we collaborated with POST on the project, and how the data produced from this project will be used to inform management planning. So the Open Space Authority is a part of the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network, and the Stewardship Network formed a wildlife working group that ultimately decided to select American badgers to help guide the network's conservation goals of enhancing grassland habitat connectivity and grassland stewardship throughout the region. And the interest in selecting American badgers as a species of interest really comes from the status that we observe today. They're listed as a species of special concern by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this comes from the fact that badgers and their habitats are quite adverse to the effects of development and human disturbance on the landscape. And the reason being they are quite wide-ranging mammals, so they require large swaths of connected grassland habitat in order to roam and find the resources that are essential to them. So historically, their population numbers have declined throughout the state, and there's been a statewide initiative to learn more about badgers and better understand their movement patterns and how the population is doing on a statewide basis. So following the interest in learning more about badgers, there's been sufficient data that has come out of these efforts that are now being used to drive conservation measures. And specifically here in our region, badgers are proposed for listing under the coming amendment to the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan. So throughout the Habitat Plan permit area, this listing would enhance the level of protection that badgers receive, which is important because the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Species of Special Concern listing is quite limited in terms of what sort of protection it provides for badgers. So under the Habitat Plan, they would receive enhanced protection while allowing for the future development in this particular region. And to look at the types of data that are being produced and leveraged to inform management planning, I would like to highlight the project that I got to work on as a GIS intern with Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. MidPen published data in 2024 of their computer model that they produced that identifies likely movement pathways for American badgers between patches of grassland habitat found throughout MidPen's jurisdiction and beyond. So the corridor model identified movement pathways between grassland through their core preserves, but also identified linkages that extend down the Pacific coast to the badger population found in Santa Cruz. And then the modeling efforts also identified a linkage to across the Santa Cruz Mountains and into Santa Clara County. And the modeling efforts identified Coyote Valley as a likely movement pathway for American badgers. And so I was brought on to the Open Space Authority to continue these modeling efforts and extend the model across Open Space Authority's jurisdiction in the interest of better understanding just how badgers might be moving across the landscape. So to learn a little bit about badgers, I'll tell you that they are small to medium-sized mammals, and everything about them has evolved to allow them to become expert diggers. And digging is a very essential adaptation for their life cycle. They use digging to build out the dens that they rest and mate in, and they also rely on digging to excavate their prey from the ground. They prey on mostly burrowing rodents like gophers and ground squirrels, but badgers are extremely prey-driven, and as they move across the landscape, you could call them opportunistic omnivores because they'll eat mostly anything. So if they encounter insects, birds, bird eggs, reptiles, and amphibians, those are fair game as well. One of my favorite parts of this project was collaborating with the communications team, and we produced the Badger Banter video that you just mentioned. So being able to talk with, consult with badger biologists and experts is really critical to these types of computer modeling and wildlife corridor modeling efforts, because you could only create a computer model based on what you know about the species. So I'll leave it to Dr. Jessie Quinn to describe to you the ways in which badgers provide ecosystem services to a variety of wildlife throughout our region in grassland ecosystems.
I don't think of the grassland ecosystem in California very much, but where we do think of that grassland system is on the Great Plains, and we kind of have a mini version of that in California, but their burrows provide habitat for other species. So for weasels, burrowing owls are one of the main species that will reoccupy a badger burrow. Down south, kit fox, the San Joaquin kit fox will use badger burrows. So they do provide habitat for animals that live in burrows but don't necessarily dig their own burrows. And then they also serve as kind of a control for some of those rodent populations, California ground squirrels and gophers, loles, where they occur. And then they also, because of the turning over the soil, that's another kind of benefit that they provide to the ecosystem, is providing this fresh soil for new plants to colonize.
I brought in this badger pelt for your reference. I'll pass it along the table here. There you go. So yeah, as Dr. Jessie Quinn explained, they really provide an ecosystem service to a variety of wildlife and grassland landscapes. And by selecting American badgers as just one of our many focal species, at OSA, we are hoping to incorporate what we know and what we learn about these species as we focus on them, and take into account their considerations when informing planning through CV Camp. So the aspect of CV Camp that I'm getting at here is the enhancement of wildlife habitat and ecological connectivity. And this is critical to focus on here in Coyote Valley because the landscape as we know it today has some pretty significant barriers to wildlife movement. And those barriers are the US Route 101, Monterey Road, and the Union Pacific Rail Line. So by using geospatial analysis to produce a computer model that predicts likely movement pathways for badgers across this region, while also taking into account these barriers that impede their movement, we can hopefully, or we seek to identify the most critically important areas on the landscape that are helping to facilitate the successful movement. And the main point of this is to maintain the genetic diversity that we see in badger populations and help facilitate the exchange of genetic material from the Santa Cruz Mountain population of badgers with the Diablo Range population of badgers, theoretically. And so there are a couple of approaches that are out there to studying wildlife movement. And one is by collaring the species that you're hoping to track with a GPS collar. And you can use that data to produce a map like this, where I'm displaying bobcat telemetry tracking that reveals critical movement corridors in Coyote Valley for bobcats. However, badgers are quite unique because of their adaptation to dig underground. Their skin is very loose to help them not get stuck underground. And so this makes collaring them difficult. So the Open Space Authority has taken another approach where we are using computer models to predict where the wildlife are likely to be, in this case, where badgers are likely to be moving. And again, these models are completely informed by applied science and expert opinion. So to start a project like this, we had to compile a comprehensive data set of badger occurrences throughout our region. And we use this data to help us inform questions that are critical to ask when you're creating something called a habitat suitability analysis. We used what we know about where we find badgers in our region to answer questions like, what things on the landscape do badgers care about? What don't they care about? And you roll it all up into a model that reveals highly suitable and fairly unsuitable or low suitability habitat types across our region. And when you take the results of all this modeling and sort of simplify it down to just that core badger habitat, it reveals an image like on the screen. So the habitat suitability modeling revealed that there is lots of grassland and badger habitat throughout the Diablo Range for them to utilize. However, west across the valley in the Santa Cruz Mountains, there is fairly limited habitat for badgers to utilize. And in the regions where there is habitat patchiness, the vegetation types that you'll find there are mostly forested and shrub communities. And as I mentioned, badgers are very prey-driven. So the movements they make across the landscape are driven by where they're going to find their next meal. And burrowing rodents just typically aren't found in the forested and shrub communities that badgers just aren't likely to move through for that reason. So after the efforts to figure out where in our jurisdiction is there good quality badger habitat, we use these results to produce a wildlife corridor model that predicts badger movement across our jurisdiction. And the modeling efforts reveal that there is quite extensive connectivity for badger movement throughout the Diablo Range in the eastern part of our study area, again, because there is abundant connected badger habitat. And conversely, on the other side of the valley in the Santa Cruz Mountains, we see those corridors become very narrow and thin and constrained to the already limited grassland habitat that's there. And on this regional level, it produced cross-valley connections from the east to west that identifies many roads and overcrossings that are likely movement pathways for badgers, but it's not easily modeled on this regional scale. So in a couple minutes, I'll highlight our efforts to zoom in on Coyote Valley and model movement across the valley there. But to look at the Santa Cruz Mountains corridor, we're seeing limited pathways because of that densely forested and shrub communities. And here in this region, for example, Little Uvas Creek Preserve is identified as a likely movement pathway. And the image that you see here is of Little Uvas Creek Preserve, and it just demonstrates that transition zone between badger habitat and less compatible habitat for badger and their prey. This is what much of the Santa Cruz Mountains look like. So these thin, constrained corridors really communicate that there's relatively poor connection to reach the badger population in the rest of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And so to go sort of on the fine scale, we wanted to start thinking about how badgers encounter the valley and the many barriers that they face while crossing the valley, and roads are a big one. Our occurrence data revealed 53 out of 163 total records are made up of badger roadkill. So this communicates that badgers do cross roads, although not always successful. And there's been a fair bit of effort to get boots on the ground and survey Coyote Valley for roadkill data, which is very informative for management planning. And so once we get this valuable data, we could start asking ourselves questions like what are things that we can do to reduce vehicle wildlife collisions here in Coyote Valley and ensure successful dispersal. And I'll show you a little snippet of the ways in which we're exploring, or an avenue of how we're doing that. You maybe have seen this video before. So this is a badger and a coyote captured traveling through a culvert, which is culverts. Humans have placed culverts under roadways as an attempt to make our lives more convenient by diverting water instead of over a roadway, under a roadway. And while it's not aimed at enhancing wildlife movement, wildlife are so resilient that they have come to realize that they can use these culverts as passages across otherwise impenetrable barriers. And so Open Space Authority collaborated with Post on this project because Post has been spending quite a bit of time, boots on the ground in Coyote Valley, surveying culverts and assessing their conditions along a stretch of US 101 in the valley. And Post delivered data to us that communicated which culverts are badgers likely to be utilizing. And we incorporated this data into a fine scale version of the corridor model. And the results of incorporating that actually provided additional movement pathways where the model identified the culvert as a likely route for badgers. In addition to the culvert, the model also identifies overpasses over highways like Metcalf Road and Bailey Overpass as likely routes for successful dispersal across the valley. That culvert that I mentioned that the model identified is by Coyote Creek Parkway, allowing badgers to enter into the parkway and hopefully enter the valley through Tulare Meadows. So these results, data like this, are very telling and will be used to inform management decisions. OSA can work with agencies like Caltrans to make sure that they are properly maintaining their culverts under their roadways so that wildlife have a fair chance of utilizing them. And additionally, we can look at the installment of directional wildlife fencing that will help guide the wildlife to the culverts that we anticipate that they will be using for movement. So from this project, it really comes at the the core of it is that we're one of many regional stakeholders in grassland and ecological connectivity and stewardship throughout our region. And through this project, we have significantly improved spatial models that exist of badger habitat here in our region. And this data that we've improved will be a resource for management planning and will help guide the future plans through CV Camp, the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan, future permitting, and general plan updates, which are required by law to include wildlife corridors. So if you guys are interested in learning more about badgers, I'll plug one more time, Badger Banter. The public public loves learning about badgers. This has been a very successful long form video that we have. So this is a great resource if you're interested in learning more. And additionally, the GIS program and communications collaborated to create a story map that is just another resource to learn about OSA's work. And then it's also focused on like regional efforts as well. So with that, thank you so much for your time tonight, and I'm open for questions. This camera's Sierra Vista Open Space Preserve, which is where we see most of our badgers because there is such a consistent ground squirrel population there.
Thank you very much. This was a great presentation and Badger Banter is a lot of fun. I'd like to open the floor for any board questions or comments. I think I'll start with Director Kennett and then just go around.
I watched the whole video and it was really great. I simply didn't either pay attention or realize there was so much involved with these critters that are around and what they do. I'd love to have a couple on my property. We're inundated with ground squirrels.
Mm,
Thank you. That was really well done.
thank you.
Yeah, I think there might be one in my backyard because I have a huge mound that goes the whole half the property.
Mm,
It's way bigger than a mole. But thank you for the presentation. Very, very good. And I was happy to see that not only are they, the badgers are following prey for food, but they're creating habitat for some of the prey. So they're compensating as well. Thank you very much. It's a good presentation.
thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation. I really enjoyed, I learned a lot, and I said I continue to learn every time, looking forward. I have a question. Does the city of San Jose, are they going to get copied in on some of this because of the wildlife corridor study? Because I think this would be fascinating to update them, that you've identified a species that we didn't even think about, there's like getting hit by cars.
Through the chair, I'd like to refer Aaron.
Yeah, through the chair, Aaron Aber, Natural Resources Manager. As Lillian mentioned, there's a relatively new law that requires wildlife corridors to be analyzed in general plan updates. This is kind of a new frontier of, general plan practice. So there's not a lot of examples out there that are done under this law, but we work with some of the consultants who are actually under contract, for instance, with Morgan Hill to do some of their updates. So we're finishing up kind of the technical documentation that's kind of behind everything Lillian described. And once we have that package, probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll submit it to a variety of folks. So this is kind of the, science of record for badgers in our area, including, San Jose, and really anyone who's in our jurisdiction for their general plan updates.
Sounds like you're giving incredible resource and data point to back up this, what we're trying to work, we're doing out there. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Dominguez.
Yeah, just two really quick questions. Are these is this a live cam that I could get on and watch? Is that possible? Because that would be fantastic to do. And then the second one was very similar to Director Chapman around the data sharing. Is there been data sharing with higher ed institutions or their departments of DIS to learn more? Their collaboration around that?
Through the chair. Yeah, answer the first question. These are static cameras. We set them up. I'll have to ask our field staff if there's any way to get a badger stream going for, so we'll get back on that.
Be huge fascination with our community
Yeah,
and kids.
yeah.
Our kids would love to watch that live stream.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good idea. Yeah, I'll say, you know, right now the conversation's mostly been kind of within the conservation community. Lily mentioned the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network. So distributing to all of those land managers in our area, as well as the habitat plan will actually be coming at the next meeting of the board of directors to give you an update. So I don't know if they might mention Badger by name once there, but yeah, it's a good question. How can we roll this out into the broader community? We've been kind of racing towards the finish line. We'll be sharing a poster at the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network's Science and Symposium thing on January 30th. So we're in the academic kind of space. So there might be some of those higher ed folks there. So we haven't quite got into the rollout phase, but that's a great idea.
And Director Gill.
It's really a great presentation. You did a fantastic job for that. I learned a lot. I don't know about badgers before, but when I just watched this video and your presentation, quite a bit understand what is the badgers there. Can we see that one face to face? That badger somewhere?
Can you see one?
Go to the any property, then we can see there.
Yeah, through the chair. If you want to see a badger in OSA's preserves, you're probably most likely to see one at Sierra Vista Open Space Preserve. Yeah, our staff have seen them there over the years relatively frequently.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Good job.
Thank you.
I think my comment is that, this is all great and lovely and amazing information, but I was really sad when I saw the little triangles
Mm.
where there are a lot of badger roadkills.
Mm.
And, so I'm hoping that this, well, I know this information will be used to somehow knock that number down. I don't want to see them on the road.
Yeah.
But thank you for your great presentation and your great work. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just trying to catch your eye. No. Through the chair, may I just thank Lillian for her work on this project. It's been a pleasure to have you on board, and through this great work, you've gotten to earn a position with us as a GIS technician. We can't wait to see what else you're able to accomplish on behalf of the Open Space Authority. And I also want to acknowledge as well that this work is really a culmination of the or like an action of the landscape linkage and Monterey Road report, where a lot of that roadkill data was generated from those studies. So kind of as a recommendation from those reports of doing further studies and geospatial analysis, that's what you're seeing this evening. So here's us progressing on that great work accomplished by our colleagues in the last 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? There are none. Do I ask? We now okay to just say this item's informational only and no board actions needed. Okay. Thank you very much. And new business item number 4 is to receive a presentation on the completed restoration projects for Rancho Cañada del Oro Stock Ponds and Laguna Seca Stepping Stone Restoration. And this is Rachel. Hi,
Yes.
Rachel.
Hello, good evening, colleagues and board members. My name is Rachel Clemens. I am our watershed restoration specialist, and I'm going to be giving a summary of the 2 restoration projects that I implemented with our staff this summer. It's a bit of a longer presentation, but I have a lot of cool visuals and photos, so I'm really proud of our work that we did this summer, and I hope that you find it as fascinating as I did. I'll start by just giving a side-by-side high-level summary of the 2 projects, and then I'll dive into each one a little bit more in detail, giving some background and on why we did the project and what we actually did on the land. And then I'll talk about any learnings that we had and next steps. And then at the end, hopefully we have some time for questions and comments. So, like I said, we had 2 projects this summer. The first one was the Laguna Seca Stepping Stone project. And it was a small project really designed as a pilot, what we hope will be the first of many restoration actions that take place in North Laguna Seca, which is a very central area to the Coyote Valley area's master plan. So we planned for about 1.5 years, and the project took 2 weeks to implement. I'll say that we did most of the implementation in-house with our own staff, which was really neat to see and helped build a lot of capacity to do more restoration work like this in the future. The main goals were to retain more water in the wetland after it's experienced a lot of modification and degradation over the last century, and also to experiment and test some hypotheses and gather some information that will help us in future restoration projects there. I would say our target species were really a lot of species. It was maybe more general of just species that use wetland areas, but specifically California tiger salamander, perhaps red-legged frogs, and a lot of water birds use Laguna Seca. You can see it was quite a relatively smaller project as compared to the Rancho Cañada del Oro project, both in terms of just planning time and cost. At Rancho Cañada, we restored 3 stock ponds to kind of extend their life and utility for wildlife. You can see the project was in planning for a very long time. That was because primarily we had some staff turnover and the COVID-19 pandemic kind of right in the middle of planning everything. So it took quite a while to get to the finish line. So we were really happy to get this one done this summer. It took pretty much all summer to do, about 4 months, and we'll have a 5-year monitoring period. So this is definitely a big investment from the authority to do a project like this. Like I mentioned, we wanted to extend the life of 3 man-made stock ponds that were built in the early 1960s, late 1950s, and enhance habitat for species we knew that were using the ponds, which were Western pond turtle and California red-legged frog. The project was a significant investment, about $1 million project, quite a bit of staff time. However, about 40% was grant funded, which is great to see. And on both projects, we engaged a number of partners that I'll talk about more. So first up is the Stepping Stone project. This is the location. Laguna Seca is a historic wetland in North Coyote Valley. The figure on the right is the historical ecology. The wetland used to extend over 1 mile long from north to south, and it used to have perennial parts to it. And now it is quite a bit smaller in extent and the time that water sticks around later into the season. So the habitat has been degraded in various ways. A little bit of historical context on that is in 1916, they started the reclamation of Laguna Seca, where they drained the wetland in about 10 different ways, all the ways that they knew how, in order to try to clear the land for farming and other developments. This is a machine that dug a really big ditch right to the center of the wetland, and they connected it to other canals and drainage ditches. This is, you can kind of see here on the photo, there's like a white line that you can see on this vegetation. That's where the water stood before they dug that ditch. So we have evidence that the water used to be at least 4 feet high. Now it doesn't really get anywhere near that for a long period of time. This is a photo of them digging ditches and installing what we call tile drains. These are underground drains that extend that drainage network out into the wetland area and funnel all that water into the drainage ditch. And they also removed and burned vegetation, including willows and tules. So quite a bit on this wetland. And this is kind of our current landscape that we're working with. You can see the extent of the wetland is much smaller. There's that artificial drainage channel right in the middle. There's also now a connection to Coyote Creek, which wasn't there historically. So everything on this landscape is designed to shuttle water off as fast as possible, rather than sticking around for the benefit of wildlife. And so when I refer to the drainage channel, that's kind of what I'm talking about. And then the general wetland area you can see is what's wetted in this picture in the winter. So our goals with the Stepping Stone project, like I mentioned, it was a pilot project. We really wanted to get out there and explore and restore some of that natural hydrology. We were particularly interested in those tile drains. We wanted to know are the tile drains from 1916 still functioning? Are they there? We also had evidence that potentially more tile drains were put on to expand that system. So we wanted to kind of fact check that. We also wanted to modify that artificial drainage channel. It's super, super straight and super kind of homogeneous and gets water out as fast as possible. We wanted to use a technique called beaver dam analogs, and I'll show you some photos in a minute, but to help back water up and keep it from draining out so fast. So this is a complex and beautiful figure. I'm going to walk you through what it's showing. We went out there in the wetland with an excavator, and I watched our equipment mechanic operator dig holes for several days. And all these lines on the map here are where we thought we might find something interesting, be that a tile drain from 1916, or which is the yellow and purple lines, or the orange lines, which we thought would be PVC pipes from additional construction drawings that we found that we thought were installed sometime after 1950. So quite an extensive drainage network. And we wanted to see, firstly, if the tile drains from 1916 were there. And they were, which was really interesting. Though largely we found that they were not intact. A lot of them appeared to be collapsed, but it was really cool that we were able to georeference these blueprints from over 100 years ago and pretty much nail it with where we dug into the ground. So that was really neat. We found tile drain 1, so the one by the tree line here. The one that's making a T in the center, we actually were not able to locate. So that means it was either removed at some point or never put in. So either way, that's really good information to know. Digging around the orange and green lines, we expected to find PVC pipes. And we didn't find PVC pipes. What we found were these linear features of gravel. So this is a wetland that has clay soils. These gravels are obviously put there by humans. So this was a really interesting and unexpected finding. And we found them usually right where we would have expected to find the PVC pipes. It's really interesting because they were holding on to a lot of water. You can see in this photo on the right, we dug in one area, it hit a pocket of gravel, a bunch of water would gush in, and then just a couple feet over where there's no gravel, the water would be much, much lower. So, and they appeared to sort of be linear and going towards the drainage channel. So that was an interesting finding. And not all of them had water, but most of them did, and they tended to be concentrated near the center of the wetland. So our findings here, tile drains, no longer functional. We probably don't have to worry much about them in our future restoration planning. We only found PVC pipes in one area, so it's definitely our image of where we thought the PVC pipes would be was not accurate, and it's definitely not as extensive as we thought. And we have this gravel that we're going to have to deal with in future restoration scenarios. So it's good to know that it's there, good to know that it's shuttling water away from the wetland to some extent. So we'll have to think about how we want to address that in future restoration planning. So fact finding complete. The next thing that we did for the Stepping Stone project was build these beaver dam logs, or BDAs. So these are structures that mimic the natural function of beaver dams in the wild. So they back up water, they create habitat complexity, they keep water around for longer into the season. So they're basically made out of vegetated branches and dirt, kind of like a lasagna. You just keep stacking them on top of each other, and it creates a mound that spans the channel. BDAs are a really hot topic in the world of restoration right now because they're simple, cost-effective. You can build them with materials on site, and they're easily modified or removed. So it was cool to try out this technique on our land, and I hope we can continue doing this into the future. These are some photos of us building it. We had a lot of people from partnering organizations come out and help, and that's a good thing because it's really labor intensive to build these, but also super rewarding. This is a picture of what they look like completed. You can see there's logs that are stacked on the downstream end to kind of give the structure some weight and hold it in place. And this is a post-rain photo from December. So you can kind of see the water on the upstream side is maybe a little bit higher. And I'll be particularly interested to see how this performs when the water starts to draw down in the spring. The goal is to keep more water on the upstream side rather than it going down the drainage channel. So I'll continue monitoring these and see if they're effective and see if it's something we want to replicate in other areas. So again, I'm going to keep monitoring the site. I think this project provided a lot of valuable information and experience for our staff. We're going to maintain the VDAs, maybe build them up a little bit higher in the springtime. And like I said, hopefully future phases of this stepping stone project in the Laguna Seca area will continue. Moving on to our second project, which is the Rancho Ponds project. They're about a half a mile from each other. Pond 1 is quite big. It's about an acre and it's very deep. The issue there was that the berm was leaking and there were a ton of invasive catfish, making it really difficult for any native frogs and amphibians to have a sustainable population. So we wanted to drain the pond to actually do the construction work with the added benefit of killing off all those invasive fish and repair the berm by lining it with a kind of a waterproof liner, essentially. Ponds 7 and 10 are much smaller and they're very similar. More of a classic stock pond in the sense that they all typically need maintenance every so often because they sediment in over time and they become much less of a pond, so you kind of gotta muck them out. And there were also some erosion issues going on there. Before we worked on any of the ponds, we had to drain them and we had to relocate some of the critters that were living in them, which was a little bit chaotic and a really interesting experience, and also a really great window into what was living in there. So really good, some baseline data. You can see at Pond 1, this is where all those catfish were. There were almost no newts or tree frogs or red-legged frogs or really anything. We do have a good western pond turtle population there, but only because they're big enough to not get eaten by a catfish. So that was a really eye-opening thing to see. Pond 7 had a lot more diversity than we expected. We found adult and juvenile and tadpole red-legged frogs there, as well as western pond turtles, which we were not expecting. We relocated all the adults and all the tadpoles that we could downstream to Yagas Creek, so they would have a chance to still stay alive, and hopefully they or their children or grandchildren can make their way back up to the ponds in the future. So not as cute as a badger, but still has a special place in my heart. This is the California red-legged frog. On the left is an adult female. She's not too happy to be taken out of her pond, but there she is serving her new kingdom in Yagas Creek. And I told her to come on back up in a few months. And this is on the right-hand side, there's a red-legged frog tadpole. You can see the one on the right is just starting to grow legs. They undergo this incredible metamorphosis where they convert from essentially getting oxygen and water to on land, and they grow legs and absorb their tail, and it's pretty alien stuff. These are the pond turtles. We found some really tiny, cute ones, helped them get relocated. The one on the bottom left is actually self-relocating, which is how the majority of the ones from the big pond, pond number 1, got out. They're actually adapted to do that. They go up into the uplands and they dig a hole and they just wait for it to start raining, and then they make their way back to the pond. We've already seen them back in the pond this year, which is really great. So I just have a few before and after photos, and I'm going to start with the 2 small ponds because they're a little more straightforward. This is before. You can see there's a lot of vegetation in there, not really much of a pond anymore. And this is after. I was worried about those tules, but they're already starting to come back. They're pretty aggressive growers. And it's a little tough to see in this photo, but this is where we repaired the berm. Essentially, where the berm collapsed was our new outfall location, which was not good. And this is after. So this is that collapsed berm, a little bit more of a close-up. And this is repaired. There was also quite a bit of erosion issues with this outfall pipe. So we relocated the outfall pipe, put in this new overflow structure, and relocated it away from the old head cut and erosion area, and took the pipe all the way down the hillside so that hopefully we won't experience that same type of erosion. Pond 10 is very similar. This is a before picture and after, so the pond is a bit deepened, it's a little bit wider. We installed fencing around both of these ponds as well to protect from cattle impacts. So before from this angle. We put in a lot of container plants, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. There's a floating turtle ramp in the center of that pond where the turtles can bask if they choose to come on over. This is looking into the pond. There was actually no like formal spillway or outflow structure. It was kind of just sliding off and creating a really big head cut. So we installed an overflow pipe. On the left is the old erosion, and then on the right is the new outflow pipe. Pond 1 was kind of our trickiest pond in some ways. It's the biggest one. It's about 1 acre, and it's in a very steep valley. The reason we did this is because the berm that's pictured here on the left was leaking. The photo on the right is just some photo evidence of water seeping through the berm in previous years. So what we were doing was installing a bentonite clay liner on the berm from about where the first person is standing to where the furthest person is standing, maybe a little bit more in. We had to drain the pond first, which actually proved to be pretty complicated. It's a lot of water and it's really wet even after all the water is gone. There was a lot of this, just kind of standing around, looking at the ponds. When's it going to dry out? Because you really couldn't walk more than 2 feet into the pond without sinking up to your waist. It was a real safety hazard, much less getting a 20,000-pound excavator out there. So there was a lot of back and forth of like, how do we dry out the pond? And can we get machinery out there? And what are the logistics of this going to look like? There was about 3 to 4 feet of unexpected clay sediment built up over the last 60, 70 years of everything washing down into this valley. So we had to actually remove all that mud and sediment out of the way before we could even begin placing the bentonite liner. So it was pretty logistically complicated, but an interesting case. So this is, once they got that muck out of the way, this is them starting to put these bags of bentonite onto the pond. And then they just mix it with the native soil and kind of compress it back in. And the bentonite, when it's exposed to water, it gets, it essentially just becomes like really tight and compact and prevents water from seeping into the berm. Kind of acts as a waterproof layer. So 3 excavators walk into a bar. Here's what they're all doing. The top left is doing what I just said. It's mixing that bentonite with the top layer of soil. The one on the right is clearing out all of the sediment so that we can even get to the base layer of the pond. And the one at the bottom is digging a cutoff trench. So that's kind of the end of the liner, and it forces all the water to go beneath the liner instead of through the berm. So a complicated and graceful dance of machinery in this very small confined area. And because we had to move all the sediment to work on the actual pond bottom, we had to do 1/2. We had to move all the sediment to one side, do 1/2, and then flop it back over and then do the other half. So it was kind of a creative solution and worked out well despite a lot of uncertainty in the beginning. So here's some after photos. I will say these are from November. Since all the rain we just got, this pond is completely full, way sooner than expected, which has presented a few challenges, but I am happy to have received the rain. So here's some after photos. We've got some erosion control blanket on the work area. Floating turtle ramps in here as well. Some plantings here too. All the ponds have water depth gauges installed and fencing installed now. Here's a close-up of those turtle basking ramps. I hope they use them. And then we also seeded some areas of disturbance in the project work site. So here's some photos. We partnered with the Student Conservation Association. They came out and helped with some fencing. So they worked alongside our field staff. So this is a great opportunity for them to learn about the conservation field, do some projects on the land. We also worked with the San Jose Conservation Corps to install 2,600 plants across the 3 ponds. This was no easy feat. It was a really big planting project. So here are some examples of the species that we planted. They're all wetland, water-loving plants. We got some really great photos of the Corps coming out to help us. Pretty tough planting conditions, more of a remote site. They did a really amazing job, and it's really rewarding to work with these young people who are kind of just getting their foot in the door with conservation. And our field staff worked alongside them, which was really, really helpful. Found a big mushroom. And while that was happening, our field staff was working diligently in really challenging conditions to install the irrigation that's going to supply water to these plants in the dry season. And what we thought would be before the pond fills up, though that happened a lot quicker than we thought. So really a lot of gratitude to them. We also had 2 volunteer days with the public. So they came out and helped us plant. A really fun project. So there'll be a 5-year monitoring and maintenance period. We're going to be looking at various things to determine the success of the project. Do the ponds and the berms stay stable? Do all of those fun species come back? Do we have newts and tree frogs and red-legged frogs and western pond turtles? And how long does it take? Are their populations able to expand? Do invasive species like bullfrogs come in? What's the vegetation cover and success looking like after our plantings? And there's a lot of features to maintain. So it'll continue to be a significant commitment from us over the next few years, but I think and I hope it'll be a really worthwhile commitment. It's been a really cool project. So here's just the summary slide again to kind of wrap things up, comparing and contrasting the 2 projects. Similar in nature, but very different in the way they were executed and the sites and the challenges that each one presented. I encourage you, if you haven't seen these, our communications team did a really awesome job publicizing this work this summer. Feel really grateful to them as well. These are really cool videos that show some visuals from the project and some interviews so you can get insight into specific components. And our BDAs were featured in Nature magazine, which is really cool, I think. The article is about nature-based solutions to flooding in urban areas. So I hope that our humble little BDAs can spark some greater conversation about restoration like this and make it more accessible for other people to do this as well. And lastly, I just want to point out the partnerships that we had on these 2 projects. For building the BDAs, we had representatives from POST, the San Mateo Resource Conservation District, City of San Jose, the Habitat Agency, and Valley Water all come out and physically help us build the BDAs, which was really special. And a great learning exchange between agencies and organizations. And we worked with a great company called Nature's Engineers. They specialize in BDAs and restoration work like this and do a lot of great beaver advocacy work in San Luis Obispo. And it was awesome to make a connection with them. Like I mentioned before, the Student Conservation Association and the San Jose Conservation Corps came out to help with the Rancho project, and Point Blue and Valley Water were both funders of that project. So, there's the element of all the technical things we did on the land to help, the critters out there, but there's also the ecosystem of people and the relationships we were able to build and bolster that will help further this work in our organization and also in the region. So I find that to be a really rewarding part of these projects as well. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions and comments you have about either project, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Rick Kennett.
Yeah, so sort of following along some of the videos that came before, it was kind of cool to see that. I'm looking forward to going out there and watching some critters float around. Well done, thank you.
Thanks.
Rick Matthews.
Good project. Good presentation. Great presentation. Thank you very much. I want to know when we can go out there. I want to see this.
Yeah. I would love to host a board outing. I think we took one of the committees out there. I can't remember which one. Which one?
Our expenditure plan oversight.
Yeah, we took the expenditure plan and oversight committee out there last year.
Board needs to feel-
The board could come out. That'd be really fun. Maybe we could put you to work doing some weeding too. I'd be happy to do a tour.
No questions, so thank you for the great presentation.
Thanks.
Director Gill?
No question, no comments, but really a great presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question, and this is me not understanding what I was hearing. If it's is it a stock pond? And does that mean it's there to provide water for cattle?
Yes, so that is why the ponds were originally built when the land was exclusively used for ranching. So there's stock ponds, it's pretty common in a lot of our preserves in this region. And some of them still are used for cattle as well as habitat, and that's kind of sometimes a delicate balance, but it definitely is possible for them to be used for both.
Because you fence them off.
That's
right?
correct.
So they're still called stock ponds, but they're not available for cattle.
Yeah, so the big pond can still be used for cattle. We're fencing some portions of it off. The berm, we're going to keep cattle off just for the stability of that construction project, but they'll still have access to other parts of the pond. And then pond 7, they have actually been off that for a while because of that. There's some geotechnical concerns around that pond, and it may not last forever. So we're trying to keep the cattle off that one. But pond 10, it is fenced off, but there is a gate, so we could work with the grazer to do some flash grazing inside the pond at certain times.
And then where does the water come from besides the rain?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say with pond 10, it primarily comes from rain, like surface water. Pond 7 and pond 1 definitely have a strong groundwater component. There's actually a spring up on that ridge. So we found that those 2 ponds, actually, we had to continuously pump them out during construction. So there is a source of water even in the dry season, at least during, average or above average precipitation years.
Thank you. And then my last comment was that what a great way to train people on how to use heavy equipment. That was really impressive seeing those big things out there, and it's not everywhere where you can get that kind of training and experience, and I find that to be just a huge benefit of this organization, that we can train and use that kind of labor and trained labor force. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say the Rancho project, we had a contractor come out and do it, but they were an incredible contractor. They are a restoration specific contractor, Triangle Land Restoration, and I felt really grateful to be able to work with them because they've done a lot of similar projects, and it's not standard work to be in remote, steep, rocky conditions like that, where you're having to work so closely together. It's a little unconventional. And yeah, I also feel really proud of our staff for doing the work on the Stepping Stone project. It was a great learning opportunity for all of us, equipment and by hand. So I felt really supported by our field team. They are super competent.
And for most people who live in the valley, when we see big equipment like that, it's going to be building something downtown. And it's nice to see it being used out preserving wildlife. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I think Director Matthews.
Yeah, I did have a question. You mentioned removing a lot of the species to do the pond restoration. And then you mentioned you were hoping they would find their way back. Why wouldn't you just why wouldn't you give them a helping hand with that?
Yeah. Just put one in my pocket. That could maybe be something to consider in the future. There's a lot of, you could say, complicated or protective measures for species, for actually handling the species. You have to have a qualified biologist who has proper permits and training to even handle the species at all. We had to work with biologists to relocate them. So it's more of an extensive process to do what you would call a reintroduction to the ponds. I have a lot of confidence that newts and tree frogs will be returning. In fact, I've already seen it. And I know turtles are coming back to Pond 1. My main thing that I'm concerned about is the red-legged frog. So I think maybe it's a case of we wait a couple years and see. Because if they found their way there, they're pretty resilient, and they should be able to find their way back. So I feel good about that, and maybe if it's been a few years, that's why we have that 5-year monitoring period, and then maybe we could look into additional options. But there'd be some logistics to consider in bringing them back to the ponds from Yagas Creek. The first of which would be finding them. But yeah, so yeah, it's a good thing to think about.
Yes.
Through the chair, if I may add one thing, the board may recall some of the trail planning work at Rancho and some of the presentations that Jen on our staff has led. All of those trails, all the versions of them go by Pond 7. So whenever that project is ready, or you're doing tours related to that project, you'll drive right by it. So it's a good opportunity to see it. The other thing I'll just kind of belabor, even though Rachel mentioned it, is that, a lot of restoration work takes a long time. I think, 6 years in the case of the ponds project, plus 5 years of monitoring, right? I mean, this is like big portions of people's careers. So just to, understand how long this work takes for a bunch of reasons, from the design phase to the permitting, to the contracting, to the biology, to the cultural resources. We don't make widgets here, and there's a reason that time period can get up. The other thing I'll mention is, just that's a $1 million project. You saw all that dirt and all that equipment, and that's money. About half of that or so was funded by Valley Water, a grant from them. And then a smaller portion was a project with Point Blue, which is a long-standing partnership relationship with their straw program that connects students and teachers to watershed restoration. So, and just time to, I think Rachel told me the other day that this last year she spent 950 hours on the Rancho project. So, it's like half of an employee, right? And this is, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe the biggest project in your career.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, the 900 hours, I guess, is since I started. So maybe 2 years, but still a really good chunk of time, and definitely the biggest project that I have personally managed. And so many different, it's so interdisciplinary. I've really learned a little about a lot of things, I'll say. And I had also had to, coordinate with a lot of different people. So big learning experience for me personally, and I think for the organization, and just in terms of what it takes to do a project like this.
Yeah, so kudos to Rachel for, taking this one through. A lot of complications all along the way. But trusting staff with $1 million and a bunch of endangered species is a big deal. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
There are none.
Thank you. This item is informational and there's no board action needed. So thank you very much. And I think we are now ready to move on to committee meeting summaries. Oh, there were no committee meetings since the December meeting, so there are none. And now informational reports, beginning with General Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to defer to Mark to start our report outs.
And I'm going to hand it to Heritage Oaks.
Thank you, Mark. Lucas Schallheimer, Planning Design Construction Manager again. Provide a brief update, on the proposed Heritage Oaks Cemetery project in the city of San Jose. Staff brought this item to your board, I think it was in October, and the board provided direction for us to review the project supplemental EIR findings, as well as provide comments and do outreach to local and state elected officials as we see fit, based on the findings. Basically in December 17th, the supplemental EIR was released by the city of San Jose for public comment. Staff working closely with legal counsel is reviewing the supplemental ER findings and preparing comments. The proposed schedule is the public comment period will close in February 18th, 2016. And OSA will provide a comment letter prior to that. We were informed by city staff that the project and determination of adequacy of the findings will go to a planning director's hearing. And the date of that is TBD. It would be following the close of the comment period and then preparation of the final EAR. So we'll be tracking that very closely. So as I mentioned, OSA is planning to provide a comment letter at that public comment period, and then it goes to the director's hearing, at which OSA would plan to provide a comment letter. And depending on the decision at that point of the planning director, whether to accept the supplemental EAR or not, OSA would plan to potentially file an appeal of that. If that were the case, we would file the appeal for appeal of that, and it would go to the San Jose City Council for final approval of the supplemental EAR. And there's actually two approvals. There's a supplemental EAR and then the project approval for the plan development permit, which would, both of those items would go to the director hearing and, if appealed, the city council hearing.
Okay.
That's my update.
Thanks, Lucas. Do we have any other managers with report outs? Pardon me? Elizabeth? Okay.
Just a quick bit of good news. In the fall, we submitted our renewal application for a CSDA Transparency Certificate of Excellence. And we're excited to share that we received notice in late December that our application was approved. Just this certificate commemorates the authority's continued dedication to being transparent and open and accessible to the public. So we're very excited to have a renewal of this. And we'll be coordinating at the time with CSDA for them to come and present the certificate to the board at a future meeting in the coming month. That's it.
Aaron Aber, Natural Resources Manager. Just real quick, obviously you see the excellent work my team is up to, so I don't need to cover that, but I'll share just last week for a couple of years running now, we've worked in partnership with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to track elk on the various properties that we own and manage in Coyote Ridge. Got this nice note. Thanks again for coordinating and permitting CDFW to use OSA property for a helicopter base camp yesterday. We were able to collar an additional 5 cows and 2 bulls in the vicinity of Coyote Ridge, south of Anderson Lake. There's a total of 10 cows and 3 bulls elk collared in this area now. We're also able to collar another 8 elk in herds to the east and to the north. So Lillian did a good job of describing the different methods of understanding where wildlife moved. This is obviously a little bit more exciting with the helicopter and tranquilizers and all of that, but it really does help us sort of understand the landscape. The other thing I'll report is that staff is working very hard to develop some of the alternatives for the board's consideration. We'll talk about that at a future board meeting, next board meeting. So looking forward to sharing that. Another thing I'll mention is staff has presented in the past about the county's rural zoning update, which is a very complicated topic on a number of fronts. And similarly, at the same time, you may recall that Anna on my team has also started our agricultural strategic plan. And members of the public who don't, always know their alphabet soup of government agencies do get us confused a little bit. So some of the broad concern that people have about the rural zoning update, maybe particularly in the equestrian community or other sort of niche groups, some of that confusion is coming our way. So we're doing our best to get talking points out there just to make sure for folks to know who's on first and what our work is about versus what the county's works are about. And I'm telling the board, so in case you hear anything, please direct it to staff and we can help guide them in the right direction for what resources they might need with the county, or if they are in fact interested in our agricultural work, that we can share that as well. Thank you.
Through the chair, I think Erin just reminded me of something. If your board remembers, I don't know exactly which board meeting it was in the fall. You approved an MOU and a $30,000 contract of support with the University of California Cooperative Extension for agricultural marketing to help the public understand better the importance of our working lands, our local food, what farmers do, et cetera. And that was called for in the Santa Clara Valley Ag Plan, which we were a co-author of, and Alex sat on the technical advisory committee for that. So Julie Morris of UC Cooperative Extension is leading that up. They've come up with their marketing and branding strategy for agriculture. We're helping them out with that, and they're trying to take advantage of some of the big sporting events and other things where people are coming to San Jose. So you keep your eyes peeled. You may start to see billboards about natural and working lands on billboards along Highway 101 in the very near future. Thanks.
Thank you.
And through the chair, if I may, I have two more quick project announcements that are worth mentioning. The first is our Rancho Canada Regional Trails project expansion project, which Erin mentioned earlier. We'll be releasing on the 16th an RFP for CEQA for an environmental consultant for that project. We'll begin that analysis. And then the second big one is your board tonight adopted the NEPA documents for the Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve Public Access Improvements Project. We'll be transmitting that now to the County of Santa Clara, and that'll go to the County of Santa Clara Board of Supervisors on February 23rd is the plan for their approval. And that would be the final hurdle we need for a $100,000 grant from the federal government from HUD for that. So that's a big milestone. And then related to that, on January 23rd, we plan to issue a request for construction bids for the construction project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking at Helen and now I have to kind of shift my gaze.
I believe there is no legal report.
That's your guess.
It says no legal report on my cheat sheet.
I'll surprise you sometime.
And then board member reports.
Hi there.
Alex?
Nothing really happened since our last meeting. I wish everybody a happy new year. And it's gonna be another extremely year this year.
No report.
You.
No, I'm just looking forward to a very vibrant and exciting 2026 for a lot of reasons.
Oh, thank you, Alex, for nominating me. But I want to say congratulations to our newly elected chair, Dr. Sutherland, and then newly elected vice chair, Director Dominguez, right? So thank you very much, and we will work together, and will be achieve many tasks this year. All right.
And then I would just like to report that I did go to Patrick Aaron's, Assembly Member Aaron's holiday event and had a table there with open space information. And to remind all of us as board members to please, if you have a few minutes, reach out to the other electeds that you share areas in the district with, just to give an update on the great work that we are doing. There are sheets that we can pass out. We can leave behind the coloring books. It's just like, I think a yearly check-in with folks would be great, just so we stay on everybody's top of mind, because there's so many other distractions out there, but we would be a happy distraction.
And yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate what you just said. And yeah, agree. I think it's great to make those connections on an ongoing basis with our elected leaders in each of your respective districts. And I also wanted to mention that Charlotte, our public information manager, has set up two outreach to go boxes, which they don't have sandwiches or anything in them, but they've got the kit that if you are going to an event and say it's near term, so it's not on our long-term schedule for including volunteers, you just want to go. It's got a tablecloth, collateral, pins, giveaways, everything you need to put up a table at one of those events. And I know
And
Director
the
Sutherland, you've done that.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then I think I will adjourn the meeting at 8:16.